We've probably got the highest concentration of pebbles in all of, at least Canberra, possibly New South Wales, and the southern parts of Australia, I guess. So the session is about wearable technology. These are things that you might have seen coming up, certainly in tech circles, but also in the broader community in the last year, 2 years. These are devices, technological devices usually, that augment reality, measure reality, or bring information into you in a sort of a more comfortable sense. And so the primary one that sort of inspired this was our watches, which are actually sort of mobile connected watches. They connect to your telephone, or, well, there we go, I've just got an SMS come through on my phone reminding me to donate blood this week. And it augments reality in that way, brings information in to you. There is also other examples of wearable technology. You have heart rate monitors, which people wear when they go cycling or running. I wear one of those every day when I go running. Google Glass, if you've got enough money and contacts, you can wear yourself a pair of glasses that look incredibly dorky. But nobody likes you wearing them. Nobody likes you wearing them because you can be doing any number of things while you're holding a conversation with somebody. You can be Googling the internet. You can be recording a video, which is incredibly creepy. You can be taking a photo or calling your mum. It's all possible without even lifting your hands, basically. And there are other things as well. Measuring reality. Everybody probably knows somebody who has a Fitbit or even just a pedometer. You might consider that to be wearable technology. I have the poorer cousin to a Fitbit called a misfit wearable, which we might pass around later on. And so basically this session is about that, all of these things together, fielding any questions or anybody sharing their experiences with wearable technology in the group, because obviously this is a high concentration group of people who would be interested in and have experience with these things. So I have some co-conspirators here as well, Kim, Rose and Ruth, and we might set off by, first of all, handing around our pebbles. If you're interested in getting one, put it on your wrist first. It's a little bit big. Keep it G-rated. There are some kids. Feel free to have a look, flick through the screens. They are a little bit rough around the edges, I think you might say.
Kickstarter device.
They are a Kickstarter device. In fact, mine has
Kickstarter. They shouldn't be given money to do hardware.
So if anybody's interested, have a look.
Sorry, I was a very early background. One sitting on my desk out of battery.
Yeah. So if you're all moderately satisfied that a Pebble is the right size for your wrist or not the right size for your wrist, feel free to come back here. I guess we might have some discussion. Ruth has suggested an excellent topic of the ethics of wearable technology. I sort of touched on the Google Glass component, where we don't, unfortunately.
Has anybody got any Google Glass in their bag, just in case? If not, there's a wearable meetup happening on Wednesday if you want to see one in action in Canberra.
So yeah, we might open the floor to a discussion of the ethics of these things, whether or not these are more intrusive or less intrusive technologies than, for example, somebody with a camera. I'm not saying that you're a bad person, but that it is more perhaps unobtrusive and therefore less likely to, or more likely rather, to catch you off guard or catch you in a prone situation. Kevin, you had a comment?
I mean, there is a real problem here.
So some sort of do not record flag for a conversation or for a room or for a location.
So I don't disagree with you, but it does raise a really interesting point about what is recording and what is kind of shareable after that as well. Because you say, for example, you don't want anyone recording you talking right now, but everybody here is remembering what you're saying and able to repeat that to anyone else. And it's kind of, what's the line there? Why is the technology so much worse than people?
Just the remembering me is the problem. So we're socially set up to forget. We haven't got enough.
I'm going to remember you, Kevin.
And our memories aren't clear and they're fuzzy, and so we've developed our society to handle that sort of thing. Now we've got something that's precise and it remembers exactly. We can't handle it.
Right.
It's too hard.
I mean,
sorry.
Yep, go there.
You've got a comment over there.
Yeah, so we've got social etiquette things that we do in real space called like the Chatham House rules, where you can report the content of what was said, but not specifically who said it. But you know, the new age that we're in, I'm being recorded by 20 people, and I will be quoted as saying this by the 20 people who recorded it.
That could have happened anyway.
Yeah, it could have happened anyway.
Social
Yes,
context again.
exactly.
Yeah. So I prefer like, rather than sort of the default, I think people have got an illusion of privacy in a public space that we don't really, it's something we've built up over time without these devices. But like we said earlier, you get anybody can remember anything. So I prefer a radical transparency approach where I put my data out in public, therefore I own a copy of that data, and it's my original truth, rather than being somebody else recording it to use against me. So I put everything out there. And there's a good example, in the US there was a guy that was fingered by Department of Homeland Security, and what he did from that day forward was published every movement that he was on, so there was no disparity in power between Big Brother and himself. So that closes that gap a bit.
Interesting. Adam?
I don't know, but there's some conversations that I'd really like to have an exact record of, and if I'm going to be quoted, I better at least be quoted accurately.
True.
I wonder, is this a generational thing? I should say I teach IT, and for a while I was teaching a course in social issues and that. And we were perceiving, you know, talking to my students that sometimes we saw a real disconnect between generations. You know, now I'm an older generation here, there's a lot of younger people. It's too facile to say younger people aren't interested in privacy. I think we've seen that that's not true. But I think it's also true that the younger generation, as a gross generality, tend to be far more open about pushing information through. So I guess the question is, do you think we're changing societal norms? Do you think what expectations, you know, for society generally will change in future, and these, and the fact we've got these devices will be part of that?
Good point. Anyone want to comment on that? But are we changing societal norms or and the panel?
I mean, more understanding of the risks.
Can you expand on that?
Is it, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, wherever, I know the risks of doing that. I'm careful with how much information I put up, but if someone was to be bothered enough, they could trawl through the internet and find enough information about me, whether I liked it or not. So the concept of trying to keep every aspect of your life private, you turn off tracking on your cell phone, you don't use ATMs, you have to go to great lengths to avoid it. So because we understand some of the risks, not everybody understands all the risks, it allows us to be a little bit more casual. And yes, we might fall over occasionally, but that's part of the risk. It's probably easier falling over occasionally and you have to cancel your credit card than it is going through your life being paranoid about everybody and everything and every interaction.
The younger generation as well, I think, have come onto things like social media at an age where they don't understand the long-term ramifications of what they're putting out there and how it can come back and bite them on the bum at a later stage.
I agree with that, and I've seen examples of that in my family, in the extended family. I was a late joiner of Facebook, and my son took me aside, Mum, here are the privacy settings. So he set them all up for me, and then my daughter came up and said exactly the same thing. Oh, you've already got those privacy settings. Here are some more. So, and I had strict instructions. I was not to say things like, oh, we're going to Sydney next week, because that would announce to the world that, you know, our house was empty. So I didn't put any of that up. What I did was put up things like articles I liked and jokes that I liked and whatever. And I look back on it now, and there is this amazing social profile of me. It tells you my political views, my social views, which in a way is more revealing and unintentionally more revealing than me saying I'm going to Sydney on the weekend.
Here's literally throwing up.
Sometimes we bring it back to wearables. What's really interesting about that is one of my friends, I'm not sure he was in this room, Dean, he's actually wearing another wearable. I can't remember what it's
Sorry,
called.
videotaping me before.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it's about capturing those aspects and building up this profile of your life. So maybe one aspect of the wearbable is trying to
Augment your memory.
augment your own memory, externalizing your memory. And what's the validity and ethics of that? I'm not sure.
My memory sucks, and I bought one of those.
Well, I mean, for a long while, it's probably been possible to record a 100% audio of your life. You know, you're looking at a low-rate MP3, maybe, 1 megabyte per minute, 60 megs a day. 60 megs an hour. You're looking at very small. This is the thing. We'll be swamped in data, but a computer can process that sort of thing. Cut out when you're sleeping. Cut out when you're not talking. Give you a nice condensed version of your day.
For like 5 minutes.
Probably, yeah. And so this has been the reality that somebody can be recording constantly. This has been reality for 10 years, even with consumer hardware.
So wearables are collecting so much data. Where do you guys see the future where this kind of stuff is going?
Big companies are using it to market to us.
So what, assessing this kind of data from us? And
The problem is really with your personal data is ownership. So if all your Facebook data, all your Google, that's really not owned by you, that's owned by a corporation. So you've got to establish rights over that and have an open source solution that says, I'm going to upload it to my personal cloud, or I'm going to put it here, and that's got to be yours. It's something you own.
What concerns me is the possibility that you'll go to get healthcare and they'll go, well, according to your wearable, you haven't had your 5 servings of vegetables or done your 1,000 steps, or you know, you've been in the pub far too long, so we're not going to help you because
you haven't taken care. Interesting. James.
Yeah, one of the interesting sub-areas I'm interested in, because you've got this broad idea of wearables and the quantified self, which goes into this issue of, you know, what would a life insurance company do or a health insurance company do with that data. There's a sub-level where you perhaps where you may have less control, not just because you're giving data over to someone like Facebook, but your employer. So the idea of the quantified employee. One of the emerging areas that people are interested in around health and well-being is having kind of corporate internal competitions about who's walked the most this week, or who's lost the most amount of weight. So they're sort of taking corporate well-being.
That's right out of the US, because the US health insurers want to minimise their.
That's right. That's right. I know they're experimenting with that between the wearables and the health insurance companies in the US are looking at that. But yeah, quantified employee, where were you sitting? How long were you in that area for? How long was your lunch break? What are you eating and drinking? It's a whole sort of interesting sub-area that has its own sort of complications around privacy and employee rights, employer rights. Yeah, but it's coming.
I mean, and in that context, and in others, especially in legal leagues, we have set up society to create certain protections around what we share and what we say. So my question, and I don't know if somebody knows the answer to this, I'm fairly certain that the rules of hearsay don't apply to a video recording of our conversation. So where in 10 years ago in a courtroom, if I overheard my neighbours through the wall and I heard her saying this, and I went into a court to talk about that story, I would be precluded from giving that evidence on the basis that it was hearsay. If I have a recording of it, it doesn't, so that protection no longer applies. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a protection that we want to keep, but it does have ramifications for everything that we do. So we're changing society, but into what and why? Have we actually thought through with the other?
Perhaps my thought on that, and something that James mentioned, is that these things are actually documenting reality. And so a videotape is a documentation of reality. And that's the reason why the hearsay rule doesn't apply. None of you probably aren't lawyers, so the hearsay rule is quite complicated, but it's more about not being able to interrogate the veracity through a third party. But if you have a videotape or an audio recording or a measurement of how many steps I've taken, then that's a more accurate representation of reality. It's the truth, effectively, made digital.
And correct me if I'm wrong, then we're moving from an acknowledgement of a slightly socially constructed reality to a realistic one. And that's a philosophical shift. And are we prepared to make that shift in all avenues of our lives to say, okay, we're now acknowledging that reality isn't necessarily socially constructed, we have a realist objective truth.
Right.
Adam and Dave. Sorry,
Okay.
Adam and Dave.
Does that mean our laws have to catch up to the technology then? I think the technology...
Well, there's always, yeah. It's true that the technology is always ahead of the law, but then there's the question of, and I think this goes into a philosophical question, I think the courts would be quite happy to know that they have a a verifiably true recording of the world. That would make the job of a court, which deals with evidence, so much more easy. If it's verifiably true, yeah.
Away the protection of, yes, in that case, everything is going to have to be recorded at all times for all people, because that's a dynamic, that's a hegemony, that's a power structure, right? So if some things are recorded and other things aren't, then you lose that reality, because then you have a value-laden system where some things are given value and some things aren't. So you're back in the same system. Unless we're able to say, as of today, all activities, private or otherwise, everywhere in the world, are going to be recorded with the same level of accuracy. I think we're still living in the world that we live in.
Unless you take it to a personal, what you value personally. So if I value personally my conversations with, say, clients, and I choose to record those with, I'm not a lawyer. This is a hypothetical scenario. If I valued conversations, accurate recordings of conversations with clients, and made an agreement to make recordings of those, then that's a private decision to do that, and therefore I'm protecting what I consider to be valuable. It doesn't mean that everybody has to record their own conversations in order to defend themselves against what I consider valuable.
Let me start wrapping up. I think Dave had a comment.
Don't get too hung up on this wearables thing. It's just another step in the story of bionics. This interface between my finger and the glass and my eyeball on my phone is irrelevant. It's an enhancement of how I work as a person. Google Glass is another step forward. But I mean, it's not, 10 years down the line, the cochlear implant's already one of Australia's greatest tech exports. When medical bionics and lifestyle bionics start converging, that's when it's going to get very, very exciting, and also even scary, because thought crime becomes a real possibility there. Now, I'm very bullish about this tech, but even that scares me a little bit, because even Google doesn't know everything I think about late at night. So
I'm sure they can infer from you.
I just want to add a slightly different shift. We've talked a lot about the privacy and the personal use of that data, because a lot of our wearable tech at the moment is for personal use. It's our choice. We opt into this kind of stuff we try to control. We hope no one hacks it too badly. But I was recently on the field and just wanted to share a slightly different perspective of where people are getting excited about wearable tech. I was talking to agronomists, people out in the field, massive fields, and they'd spend a day patrolling inside the area. They're talking to farmers out there. The farmers are still carrying clipboards and paper. There's satellites out there that actually can come down to like 65 centimeters off the ground and do thermal imaging of whether your crops are healthy or not. That information is restricted.
Or whether you're growing marijuana in your house because you're...
That's again in terms of the use of the data. But farmers out there are getting excited about something that is all of a sudden, because they've all got iPhones now, they've all got some places pretty good reception. They've got more advanced tech than the government employees trying to help them. And they're excited about Google Glass, because if they can see where they're looking at, what hasn't been fixed, what their notes are, take a picture, oh my God, all that type of stuff becomes farm management for them, which shaves off so much of their effort that they can actually apply more effort and better use of their time, their money, their investment, and grow food. So as applications like that, this is where we're interested, well, I'm personally interested to see what people choose to use that is different from how they were doing it now. So that's.
So I'm just conscious that we are nearly pretty much out of time. Can we take one last comment?
I'm a corporate health and safety representative. The number one question I get asked is, can I have a piece of software on my computer that tells me that I need to get up and do some exercise? This is a huge problem for people. Now, as a corporate thing, the whole idea of a corporate challenge, so many steps, do this, have something on your arm that vibrates when you've been sat on your backside for too long. $100, $150 an employee, that's got to be worth it from a corporate point of view. So set it in the face of a challenge, get your organisation moving, doing things. And wearable tech's the best way of getting people on board, because it's a little bit exciting. Having this sort of cool thing that tells you exactly what you've done. Today you've burnt off 4 Mars bars worth of walking. Go and eat 4 Mars bars. It'll be able to tell you that you've just eaten 4 Mars bars and you're effectively at 0 for that. That's putting the onus back on the person. Your early adopters, it's gonna be a big corporate thing in the next few years, I think.
Any closing comments to wrap up?
I don't especially. I guess to summarise what we've gone through here, There are ethical implications for having things that are always on, always recording, in contact with our bodies and in contact, I guess, with the people that we're in contact with. One thing that I would say is that getting in early is something that is probably valuable in learning about these things and having conversations like this, so that in 5 years' time, when the concentration of recording devices or measuring devices is much higher than they are currently, we're all prepared. So thanks all for contributing to the discussion. Yeah, thank you.